The number of applications filed to evict renters using what is called an N12, that has increased by 77% since last year. N12s allow owners to take back their unit for the use of immediate family or caregivers. Tenant advocates say N12s are an issue because landlords can use them to drive up rent. But my next guest says that the increase is another symptom of the housing shortage. Boubah is the chair of the Small Ownership Landlords of Ontario group. The group represents small property landlords right across the province, and he joins us. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Why do you think there has been such an increase in the use of N12s?
Several reasons. Everybody knows we are in a recession right now. Everything went up, so small landlords are getting hammered by interest rate increase, by mortgage increase, by inflation, by basically everything up. But they are restricted how much they can increase the rent. So many people will choose to move back to their property or to sell it to a purchaser who wants to move back to the house. And then you have some legitimate reasons, like returning residents, somebody who rent his property and is moving back to Canada after working abroad or having a temporary assignment in another place. So there are many reasons why people are applying for getting their house back. But my suspicion is the main reason is many tenants are under the impression that they can delay the process of being evicted. Most of these evictions for personal use are taking place without going through a horrible landlord and tenant.
So just tell me, like basically, what's the process like for landlords after they issue an N12?
Well, it's a very cumbersome process. Many small landlords have to use a paralegal in order to do that. First of all, people have to understand this only affects small landlords. A corporation cannot issue an N12 because the corporation cannot move back to the house. So the landlord has to file what they call a notice, N12, and then give the tenant a compensation for 1 month. You have to give him at least 60 days. And if the tenant refuses to leave, they have to apply to the LTB. And we all know how the LTB works right now. So he can wait up to, 10 months, 6 months, nobody knows. And we'll have to wait for a hearing. At the hearing, if he manage to convince it's a good case, then have to wait for the adjudicator written decision. And if the tenant still doesn't leave, then you have to go and book a sheriff and pay a fee in order to get his own property back, which is we found is wrong at Solo.
And, what do you say to tenants, though, who say that these N12s, that they are being used to increase rent?
This is very anecdotal. The penalty for misusing an N12 are very, very, very high for any landlord who try to use that. Under the Residential Tenant Act, I think Section 57.1, the penalty for bad faith will have a 12-month compensation. Any differential increase in rent that the tenant is having is taken into account. All the out-of-pocket expense the tenant is having will have to be paid by the landlord, and there will be a 10,000 administrative fee to the LTB plus 35,000 penalty, and anything else the board decide it's a work for doing against a landlord evicting on bad faith.
But no. Do you actually think that it's not going on? Because there are many cases that have come to light where, in fact, this was being used, right? That landlords needed to get their tenants out, and then the tenant was out, and it was in order to increase the rent. So do you?
I'm not saying it's not taking place. In every profession you have, bad actors. But what I'm trying to say is the penalty is huge. So the one who are using bad faith eviction, they must be punished to the extent of the law, which is very severe. Can go up to $100,000 worth.
So, if you're to look at both sides, as you explained, there is a high burden put on landlords when it comes to evictions, but also the stakes can be high for tenants as well, right? I mean, evictions can result in people having nowhere else to go. They might be forced to move out of the city, or it can even result in homelessness. How do you think that this process could be improved to benefit both sides, both landlords and tenants?
Well, it's not only the tenants that are being impacted when they have to leave their property without their consent, what we call involuntary eviction, no fault eviction. We have in Solo, at a small ownership landlord of Ontario, we have landlords who are homeless. They own a property, but they cannot get back to their property. So both sides are being impacted negatively, and
Yes.
we understand the pressure because of the rent increase everywhere. We understand that for the tenants, but it's not the job of a small landlord to burden the ill of the society.
Yeah, no, so that's why I'm asking. How do you think that this process can be improved to benefit both sides?
Number one, you have to give some encouragement to the small landlord because the small landlord are the one giving affordable housing. Most these big corporations, they will have such screening screening method that it's almost impossible to get in there. So how to encourage a small landlord to rent to people and not to evict them for whatever reason is to streamline the process at the LTB. Why do we need to have a hearing for a no-fault eviction because the landlord wants to get his house back? He's signing an affidavit
Mhm.
in which is subject to perjury if he lies about it, and there shouldn't be any hearing for N12.
Okay, we're gonna have to leave it there because we're just running up to the news. Thanks very much for your thoughts on this.
You're welcome.
That's Boubah. He is the chair of the Small Ownership Landlords of Ontario, and the group represents small property landlords across the province.